Welcome to Iraqi Dinar News, where you receive real and authentic updates about the Iraqi dinar. If you want to stay informed with moment-by-moment developments, make sure to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Today, we're examining a topic that frequently appears in discussions among Iraqi dinar followers and international currency observers. The subject revolves around whether a national currency can experience a significant change in value over a very short period of time, and what historical examples may or may not tell us about the future of the Iraqi dinar. A common argument often presented within currency discussions is that because some currencies have experienced dramatic movements during extraordinary historical events, the Iraqi dinar could theoretically experience a substantial appreciation in a relatively short time frame. Supporters of this view often point to examples from the past, including Kuwait's currency experience during and after the Gulf War. To properly understand this discussion, it is important to separate what is historically documented from what remains speculation. First, let's examine the broader context. Currency values are influenced by a combination of factors including economic growth, government policy, foreign reserves, trade balances, inflation rates, investor confidence, political stability, and central bank decisions. Exchange rates do not move in isolation. They are connected to the overall health and structure of a country's economy. When discussing Iraq, several important factors come into play. Iraq remains one of the world's major oil-producing nations. Oil revenues continue to represent a substantial portion of government income and foreign currency earnings. As global energy markets fluctuate, Iraq's financial position can strengthen or weaken accordingly. Over the past several years, Iraqi authorities have repeatedly emphasized economic reform, modernization of the banking sector, digital payment expansion, anti-corruption initiatives, and efforts to diversify the economy beyond oil. These reforms are often viewed by analysts as important long-term foundations for economic stability. However, many dinar followers continue to focus on a different question. Could the exchange rate itself experience a major adjustment? The claim highlighted in today's discussion suggests that large currency movements can happen quickly and without advance public disclosure. Technically speaking, central banks do possess the authority to announce exchange rate changes when they deem appropriate. In many countries, monetary policy decisions are not fully disclosed before implementation. This is done to prevent speculation, market manipulation, and disruptive capital flows. That being said, there is a major difference between acknowledging that exchange rate changes can occur and assuming that a specific large-scale revaluation is imminent. Financial analysts generally caution against drawing direct comparisons between different countries and different historical periods. Every currency situation has its own unique circumstances. The Kuwait example is frequently mentioned because Kuwait experienced extraordinary conditions related to military conflict and national recovery. The circumstances surrounding Kuwait's economy, financial structure, international position, and monetary framework were unique to that period in history. As a result, economists typically advise against assuming that a historical event involving one country automatically provides a roadmap for another country's future currency policy. When examining Iraq's situation today, analysts focus on measurable indicators rather than historical comparisons alone. These indicators include foreign exchange reserves, government revenues, fiscal discipline, inflation management, banking sector development, private sector growth, investment inflows, and overall economic stability. One reason the Iraqi dinar continues to attract attention is the significant difference between its historical value decades ago and its current exchange rate structure. This historical comparison often fuels speculation about what could happen in the future. However, it is important to understand that historical values existed under different economic systems, different geopolitical environments, and different monetary conditions. Simply comparing one era to another does not necessarily provide a reliable forecast. The Central Bank of Iraq has consistently emphasized monetary stability as one of its primary objectives. Stability is often considered more important than dramatic exchange rate fluctuations because predictable currency conditions help businesses plan investments, manage costs, and conduct international trade. For ordinary Iraqi citizens, exchange rate stability can influence purchasing power, inflation expectations, and confidence in the financial system. Sudden and extreme currency movements, whether upward or downward, can create economic challenges if not managed carefully. This is why most central banks around the world generally prefer controlled and orderly monetary adjustments rather than abrupt shifts whenever possible. Another aspect worth discussing is market psychology. Currency speculation often grows when investors and observers search for signals about future policy changes. Rumors, commentary, and interpretations can spread quickly through social media and online communities. While these discussions generate significant interest, responsible analysis requires distinguishing between verified information and personal opinion. Official statements, published economic reports, central bank communications, and documented policy actions remain the most reliable sources for evaluating a country's monetary direction. Looking at Iraq's current economic environment, there are both opportunities and challenges. On the positive side, Iraq possesses substantial natural resources, strategic regional importance, and considerable long-term economic potential. Continued infrastructure development, improvements in energy production, and modernization efforts could contribute to economic growth over time. Foreign investment remains another important factor. Investors typically seek environments characterized by transparency, regulatory consistency, security, and economic predictability. Progress in these areas can enhance confidence and potentially support broader economic development. At the same time, challenges remain. Iraq continues to work through issues related to economic diversification, public sector dependence, infrastructure needs, and regional geopolitical uncertainties. These factors are frequently monitored by international institutions and financial analysts when assessing Iraq's economic outlook. For dinar followers, the key takeaway is that currency valuation ultimately reflects a much larger economic picture. Exchange rates do not exist independently from national economic performance. This brings us back to the central claim that dramatic increases can occur in a single day. From a purely technical perspective, central banks have the authority to announce significant policy changes. Financial history contains examples of currencies that have experienced notable movements due to major economic events, policy shifts, crises, recoveries, or structural reforms. However, the existence of historical examples does not constitute evidence that a similar event is about to occur in Iraq. Professional analysts generally avoid making predictions based solely on what is theoretically possible. Instead, they focus on what available evidence suggests is probable. At present, discussions regarding a substantial future appreciation of the Iraqi dinar remain largely speculative, unless supported by official policy announcements or verifiable economic developments. This distinction is extremely important for anyone following dinar-related news. The short-term outlook for Iraq is likely to remain influenced by factors such as oil prices, government budgeting, regional stability, monetary policy decisions, and ongoing reform efforts. These variables can affect market sentiment and economic performance. In the medium term, successful implementation of banking reforms, stronger private sector activity, increased foreign investment, and improved infrastructure could contribute positively to Iraq's economic trajectory. In the long term, sustained economic diversification and institutional development may have a more meaningful impact on Iraq's financial future than any single event or rumor. One of the most important lessons for currency observers is the value of patience and evidence-based analysis. Financial markets often reward disciplined evaluation over emotional reactions. Major economic developments typically emerge through a series of measurable indicators rather than through speculation alone. For viewers following the Iraqi dinar, it is helpful to monitor official communications from Iraqi authorities, economic reform initiatives, central bank policies, reserve levels, inflation data, and broader macroeconomic trends. These indicators provide a more reliable framework for understanding Iraq's economic direction. Ultimately, the claim that significant currency changes can happen quickly is not entirely without historical precedent in the broader world of finance. Yet history also teaches that each country's situation is unique, and past events elsewhere do not automatically predict future outcomes for Iraq. Therefore, a balanced perspective is essential. Iraq continues to possess meaningful economic potential and remains a country closely watched by regional and international observers. At the same time, responsible analysis requires acknowledging uncertainty and avoiding conclusions that go beyond the available evidence. As developments continue to unfold, the most productive approach for dinar followers is to stay informed, follow verified information, and evaluate economic data within its proper context, rather than relying solely on speculation or unconfirmed expectations. Thank you for watching today's Iraqi dinar update. If you appreciate responsible, factual, and balanced coverage of Iraqi economic developments, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications for future updates. As always, this content is provided for informational and educational purposes only. It should not be considered financial, investment, legal, or trading advice. Always conduct your own research and consult qualified financial professionals before making any investment decisions.